Okay, this tutorial is going to look at creating an interactive graph. This is what we're going to build. It allows me to choose which graph I show. It's just some random data. I can show both series at the same time with different colors, or just the one series. I can also show the graph using a different format. There's bubbles, donut, bar chart, and of course an area. So what it does is just generate some simple random data and uses really just what's essentially an Excel graphing engine in there. So let's kill that one and we'll open up a new project. So just call this one just file new project, call it let's just call it it's going to be a form application. Let's just call it graph graphing example. Okay, we'll let that do its thing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a simple interface, and then once we've got that done, then we'll put in some stuff to grab some random data and do our charting. So I'm just going to size that up. I also need to show the toolbox, so if yours is not visible, come and make it visible, and I'll pin that there. Okay, we're going to use a couple of things as well, just some visual elements. First thing, let's put in a containers. Let's come and put in a split container, just because we can. Split container gives us these two areas here. So in the right hand side we'll put our chart, left hand side we'll put our controls, and the number of controls will grow as the application does. So now for a chart, let's come into data, the data tab, and just drag a chart onto there. And when that comes up, it just comes up with some dummy data. You can see that. I'm just going to pull this out so that it fills the window there. And there we go, there's our chart. Now in the left hand side, let's just, for the moment, let's just put a button. We'll get it to show a couple of series, then we're going to tweak that. So I'm just going to resize that now. There we go, and I'll need to come into the properties window. So there's my properties window over there, and I'm just going to change the text on the button to be show, and I'll put the name of the button to be Hungarian notation BTN show. Alright, cool, there we go. Now the chart already comes, if you select the chart, don't double click on it, it comes with a series. Now all of these things here, annotations, chart areas, legends, series, titles, are the things you'd expect to tweak in an Excel spreadsheet and graph. I'm going to come to the series. I'm going to delete the one that's already put in there by default, so I'll remove that one. It's just a dummy one. So there we go, there's our empty chart, and we'll actually come and do that ourselves later. We'll add a series programmatically. Alright, let's double click on the button, because that's where all the stuff's going to happen. When we click the button, we'll get it to draw the graph. But first of all, we've got to add a library. We've got to add, we're going to use the charting libraries, and that's in using windows.forms. What is it? Data visualization. There it is there. Charting. Oops. Charting. There it is. Okay, and semicolon. So that library, that's grayed out at the moment because we haven't actually used anything from it. Right, we're actually going to create a couple of functions to do all the heavy lifting for us. We'll make these functions private, which just means that nobody else can get to them. They can only see them from inside this class. And some functions can return a value. We want this one to get data for us, so we're going to ask it to return an array of integers for us that will represent our data. And the name of our function we'll just call get data, and pair of round brackets, and then curly bracket and enter, and there's our function there. I'm going to put some white space there. Now it's got an error and it's saying that not all code paths return a value. We've promised that we'll return an array of integers, and we're not doing that at the moment. So we actually need to go and do some stuff, and once we've got that all together, it'll work. We're actually going to create random numbers. Now, computers don't do random numbers particularly well, but there is a class called random, and it's a random number generator. So we're just going to go and create a variable of type random, and we'll put it at the top of our class, about line 16. It's inside the class, and I'll tell you why all this later. But now, come into form 1 after the initialization line, and we're actually going to give some value. We've created it, but we haven't given it anything. We need to use the new keyword to create stuff. Random, and there it is. There's our new random number generator. It's like a machine, and we'll just actually use that to create some random numbers for us in our get data. So now, we're going to use an array of integers. So the syntax for that is int square brackets, array of integers, and we've got to use the new keyword to create the memory for it, int. And inside the square brackets this time we'll give it the number 12, because we're actually creating one piece of data for each month of the year. Oh, I've got to give it a name, sorry. Let's call it, these are going to be the Y vowels, so let's call it Y vowels. There we go. Now, what we're going to do is have a for loop that goes through and creates a random number for each of the 12 boxes inside our Y vowels array. So we'll need a for loop, for, and the same syntax, int I, we just use a little variable, start off equal to 0, I will do it while I is less than 12, but if we change that, that won't work. So we might actually just do this. This is a safer way, y vowels.length. So if I make it a longer array, 13 months, then it'll work for that as well. I plus plus, there's our for loop, curly bracket, enter, and there it is. Now inside here, all we're going to do is we're going to go and say y vowels I starts off being equal to 0 and goes right up to 11, because it's going to be less than 12. And for every one of those in turn, we're going to set it to be r.next. Get the next random number between 0 and 100. There we go. And that'll create our data for us. Now we've still got an error, because we've guaranteed that we'll return it, one of those. Well, we've got one here, so let's just return it. And that's simply the last thing in our statement is return y vowels, our array. Where'd they put the V? There it is. All right, enter. Beg your pardon, semicolon. And there's our little function. So no matter what, it will get us some data. Now, as we change the program, and it starts, instead of just doing random data, we read from a file, all we've got to do is just change this code here, and it'll work fine. So now we've got one more function to create, and this is the function that's going to do all the data for us for the chart. So let's call it create void. This is not going to give us a value back. Create chart, but it is going to create the chart for us. All right, there it is. So we've got a bit of work to do with creating the chart. It's not that hard though. We've got to create some labels to go along the y-axis, I beg your pardon, on the x-axis. We've got to create a series. We've got to give the series some data, give it those values that we generate from here, and then just load it into the chart. We've got to set up a few other things as well, but first of all, let's create our labels. So we'll create an array of strings, string array, and we'll just call it labels, and we'll set that to be equal to months. So January, comma, February, comma, March, comma, April, comma, you get the picture. So let's create all of those. Watch where you put the commas. And lastly December, and then a semicolon, and we are done. Okay, there's our, get rid of that and that as well. So there we go. There's our set of data that we're going to use for our labels. So x-axis labels. There we go. Cool. Now, because there might already be something in the chart, every time we load it, we should clear it. So it's going to be, we'll actually do chart. Now ours is called chart 1. There it is, chart 1. We didn't change the name of it. We'll do clear. So we'll go to the chart areas. There, that's the area. And there might be more than one area, but we've only got one, so it's the 0th item. They're actually stored in an array, and we're going to clear it. Oh, I beg your pardon. That's not what we want to do. We want to actually do the series and clear it. I'm sorry. We want to actually do the series. We're going to clear the series. So whatever data's in there, we want to clear it out. Okay. All right, cool. Now let's go and create our series. So this is creating programmatically what was already in there before. So we're going to do a series. It's an object, and we'll call it series _1. We'll have a couple of these, and it's actually set to, this syntax looks a bit strange, but it's actually set to, that's just wrong, that's why that looks strange, new series, but we want to give it some data when we create it. So let's do this, and we'll do series 1.name equals, call it series series just 1, series 1, and we'll do series, we're going to set some stuff in here, dot color, let's set the color to be equal color dot red, that'll do to start with. Series 1 dot, right, we've got to set some flags here. We're going to say is visible legend equals true. So that's going to make sure the little legend up on the right hand side, or wherever we place it, is going to actually be seen there. So we want to see that. We'll also put a couple of other flags here. Series 1 dot is x value indexed equals true as well. All right. That means that all of our values, the labels, will be visible along the bottom. Otherwise, it may decide to leave some of them out. We'll set the chart type. Chart type. Oh, what have I got there? I've got to use series 1. I beg your pardon. Series 1 dot chart type. We'll set the chart type to be equal. We've got a few, but let's by default, let's put it to be chart type series chart type dot let's do a line to begin with. So that'll be our default type. We can show it later, and we'll put is value. Next one, series 1 dot is value shown as label be equal to true. So it'll print our labels for us. All right, there we go. So now we've set up our, what have I got there? Oh, I beg your pardon, that's the wrong one. Is value, where is it? Value, is value indexed. That is value shown as label. There it is there. Is value shown as label equals true, I beg your pardon. So there we go. So we built our series and done a bit of setup on it. So now what we need to do is actually go and get some data. Actually, we probably should, before we do that, we probably should set our maximum value for our chart as well, so that it doesn't get to just decide chart 1 dot chart areas dot beg your pardon, 0, so it might be more than one, dot axis y. We want to set the maximum value for the y-axis. Maximum, we want to set it to be equal to, and you can see there's a whole lot of things we can do in there, but we'll set it to 100 so that we know that the biggest number we're going to get is 100, so that's cool. Now we've got to go and get our data points. Get data. So we know that our get data gives us an array of integers, so we have to create something to put it in, store it in, and let's call it, we'll call it, what do we call it, y-vals equals get data. So that will call our get data function, and it will do all of this, give us back that, and stick it in there. But the names don't have to match there, but it makes sense if they do in that case. So now we've just got to plot it. So if we did this, for int I equals 0, we've just got to go through every one of the values in there and plot it. I is less than, well, what have we got? Let's do labels, because we know how many we've got there. Labels dot length. All right. I plus plus. Here's our for loop. And what we're going to do is go to series 1, and we're going to points. It's got an array of points in there, because each space on a graph is represented by an x and a y coordinate, and we're going to use add x and y. X and y says there 2 points, so we're going to give it labels, the labels, I, whatever label we're up to, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and y-vals, I. Alright, so what it does, it's going to go through from 0 to 11, and it's go labels 0, y-vals 0, labels 1, y-vals 1, and it will plot those points into the series. Then we've just got to do this. Chart 1, dot add series. We want to add a series. Which series do we want to add? Series 1. There we go. So we've created the series. We've plotted the points to the series. Now we're actually going to add it to the chart. Now, that won't do anything at the moment, but we've got a method that will. So when we click the button, what do we want to do? We want to create the chart. So now, with a bit of luck, if I run that and speak nicely, maybe it'll do what it's supposed to. Maybe. Nearly. Okay, here we go. So let's see if I press the button. There it is. There's my data. And I can change it, and you can see that it jumps around, showing random data. Cool. Alright, if I wanted to add another series, now there's some formatting issues with the way my design's sitting there. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm not fussed at the moment. But if I want to put in another series, okay, well, I know that this stuff, I don't need more labels. I don't need to clear it anymore. But I do need, so I'm going to put a comment up here, series 1. Okay, so if I wanted to do series 2, I could just copy all of this, all of that there, Control C, come down below where I've added it, Control V, and now change the names. Series 2, Series 2. Now all of these, Series 2, you can't do it, you can't do it by search and replace, because it will change the ones that we want to stay there. Chart 1, that's okay, we don't need that again, because we're not going to set the maximum twice. Right, y-vals. Well, we better call this one up here. We've called that y-vals. We better call this one y-vals underscore 2. Get data. Okay, that's cool. But we don't want to add y-vals. We want to add y-vals 2. And we want to change that, and we want to change that. So now if I run it again, and with a bit of luck, I should get 2. 2 lots of data. There we are. Okay, now if we want to tweak that, so that let's have series 2 in blue. And if we had the chart type as bubble, now some chart types obviously don't mix, but these should. There we go. You can see the different plots there. Cool, easy. Alright, now what we need to do later on is modify this so that we can show one or the other or both, and we can also change the type of both or something like that. We could also have this one as an area, which would be interesting. And you'll see there's a bit of a problem with this when you run an area, that it may block out, because this one is drawn over the top of, it blocks out the other one. So what we could do is actually have the colour of the blue to be semi-transparent. Or we could shift the order and put the red one in front, either way. But you can have a play with that, and you can see that this, you're able to move that. We should get it to resize the graph, and we can do a lot of things with it. But for the moment, that works, and we'll tweak it a bit next time. Okay.